Not a problem. Cool.
Oh.
Right. So as Adoy said, this is going to be recorded, so hopefully we can share this with Canterbury teachers. I've been on the road for the last couple of weeks checking out pitches across the country with my good friend here, Liz Pittman.
Hi, guys.
So we've got a special guest appearance from Liz today, plus a couple of others from where we currently are. So we're sitting down in Dunedin at the moment, watching Dunedin pitches, and we've been watching a few days. And from the last couple of weeks, we've been gathering a bit of information on, the what to do's and the what not to do's based on what judges are really thinking and how to score really well on this. Because to be honest, if we want to do well in this competition, this 30% now for mid-year pitches is really important. It does matter a lot. I've got some special guest appearances from a few friends here in Dunedin as well. We've got Gwyn Prattley from Otago Boys, who is going to chuck his 5 cents worth in later on. And another friend of ours, Dave, from here at Paulson Higgs, which is an accounting firm, one of our partners here in Dunedin that we do our pitches at. So he's going to he's been judging for the last 2 days, and he's going to give us some information on what he thinks really works and what really annoys judges. So Liz is going to start us off because she's been on a bit of a journey, been in Auckland, and she's got just some words of advice and to say hello.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you. And hopefully I'll definitely have a chance to make it down for the last week of the Canterbury pitches. So some of your schools that are pitching in that last week of June, 1st of July, hopefully I'll see you in person. But to the rest of you, best of luck as you prep your teams for this. I know it's a massive task for your students and for you guys to try to get them ready and get them practiced. But as Regan said, I've been traveling around the past couple of weeks because we've had regions around the country already starting their pitches back a couple of weeks ago. And I'd say a couple of pieces of advice from me based on what I've observed and have heard the judges talk about once the teams have left when they're giving the marks. First thing that's super important is for teams to have some sort of visual representation of their product or their service. So if a team did not have any pictures or didn't have a prototype, a physical product or MVP there, then the judges often said afterwards when they were deliberating, they said it was hard for us to grasp what they were describing, what they were talking about. On the flip side, when a team did have some sort of physical product there or visual representation, even if it's just a drawing or a sketch or a flow chart, that really helped the judges understand the concept better. Which didn't just help with the marks on the business idea and on production, but it actually helped the marks throughout the entire criteria because they just understood what the team was talking about more. So really, really, really encourage your teams to have something visual there to represent their business. Other thing I would say is the students have great stories and they have great personalities. And when they're sitting there reading word for word from a sheet of paper or from their cue cards or something else, then it's hard for their personality and their story to come across as well as we all know that it can. And sometimes judges, they've said that in the question and answer time, you get the personality to come out a bit more because they're not reading from anything. And so they have a chance to just talk freely about their story and their idea and the passion driving what they're doing. And if they can put that same bit into the 5 minutes that they're pitching, it's really going to help them out. So, I know you tell them that to practice and not to memorize and not to read straight from the cards, but just reinforcing that with them, not just because of presentation style, but because it allows their personality and their story to come through better when they can make that eye contact with the judges. So those would probably be the top 2 things I would advise from what I've seen and heard the past couple of weeks around the country. And luckily you guys still have a couple of weeks before the first teams kick it off.
Cool. Great words from Liz. So I'm just going to share my screen here. I've just got a bit of a PowerPoint that Adoy and I are going to be going through, but please, if you want to chuck in your advice and your feedback from what works for you at any time when something suits, feel free to do that. And we've got good collective teachers group in Christchurch with a wealth of knowledge and experience that I've certainly learned from and shared across the country. So where are we? We're going to share this.
Just to let you know, guys, I've muted you all, so the sound is a little bit better. So if you need to talk, just click the unmute button to participate.
Cool. Is this pitch working, Adoya? You can see it.
Perfect. Yep.
Yep. First of all, we're just going to go through the mid-year pitch format. So Adoya here is going to chat about number of teams, which is a bit of a record for Christchurch.
Yes. So this year last year we had 102 teams, and this year we've jumped up to 141. So wow. It's a huge jump of pitches, teams pitching, but super exciting as well. So we're going to do that over 13 sessions, so to accommodate most of the timetables that schools have. So I've been able to make those 13-week groups, and we have recruited for 52 judging spots. So over, I think it's 37 judges, individual judges donating their time. So some are doing 2-3 sessions, but we have a lot of judges. For the day, please bring the presentations on a pen drive, on PowerPoint or PDF. This makes things a lot smoother, and I need that to be consistent so that we can keep to the timetable and timings, and not have the hiccups of logging onto things to find a presentation. So please do that. Even if it will work very well if each teacher could bring all the presentations in the one flash drive, that would be even more amazing. If that's possible, that would be great. But otherwise, we'll work with the individual pen drives. So we're going again paperless. Last year trial for the first time, not having paper for the judges to do their marking, and we used a spreadsheet which they can alter all at the same time. This worked really well, and I'm going to do that again this year. But this year, instead of asking the judges to bring their own devices, I'm going to bring 4 laptops already set up. So that should be much straightforward and avoid some of the issues we had last year with some of the judges' devices. We have 4 judges per session for each of the sessions, so that's good. A good mix. Next, which is next? We have so many sessions, but I'll be going through like all the sessions, and I think Regan is going to be able to make it to about 8 or 9 of them. So he'll be seeing most of them as well. And we will make sure we go through and make sure that we're comparing the sessions each day, that that is like an equal level, and it's all done the best that we can considering the volumes. Then going to try and be strict on timing for the pitch, and when it's 30 seconds for them to finish the pitch, I'm going to give them a little bit of an alert that they have 30 seconds to finish, and then the bell will ring at 5 minutes, and they'll need to stop then, just to keep it a little bit equal to what they will expect then at regionals and at nationals. So as much as possible, mid-year pitches, I'm going to try and be as close as possible to that.
How many minutes for questions will we give them, Adoya?
I'd say a couple of minutes for questions.
Yep.
And feedback. We'll keep it to that.
So we'll be quite strict on a 15-minute time frame. Are we working on 15s or 10s?
Yes, I'm giving it 15 just in case we'll need to troubleshoot anything. But it's probably gonna go much faster than that, than the 15 minutes. So they'll have the time to set up, then 5 minutes pitching and 2 minutes questions and answers, and we'll give a couple of minutes for the judges to finish their scoring for that team while the next set up. All the judges are instructed on how to score the teams, there's a marking schedule, and it's really important when the teams prepare the pitch that they use it almost like as a tick box. So that's what's going to give them maximum score. If they miss an area of the marking schedule, if they don't cover that, it's going to mean less points in that area. So as much as possible to contribute into to work on all the areas that they're going to be scored on.
Yeah, I'll just go over the value of first impressions. Yeah, the way a team looks when they come in, from what these judges have been telling me over the last couple of days and last year, Adoy and I took a lot of feedback from judges about small things, those little 1%ers that will bump marks up because they are impressed, they do listen better, they feel like they're more engaging when these first impressions do work. So just some things from me, dressing to impress. School uniform is great as long as it's all uniform and they look the same. The blazers look good, they're tucked in ties, those simple things look great, but I'm a really big fan of team uniforms that show personality. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. A team can look great with blazers on or dress pants or suits. As long as they look the same, that represents who they are. So I'm a big fan on that. Meeting the judges, I'm a really big fan on shaking hands. I know some groups are nervous on doing that, but I think that's important. But when they do meet a judge, they've got to use a judge's name if they can. And Adoy will have name tags set up for you. And if they see the name first and there's John, they go, "G'day, John, it's nice to meet you." Just those small little touches do make a difference. Setting up for the pitch, we will have a 15-minute slot, like Adoy said. So if a team needs to bring props in, they can bring those in first when it's their turn. They've got time to show judges what they're doing and explain how it works before they go back and set up. And I've mentioned standing, body posture. Those things are really important in terms of where they are, so judges can actually see the screen. I've seen too many students float in front of the screen, and I'm at the back trying to wave at them saying, move across, move across. Simple things make the team look more professional. Using tech. For this one, I've seen groups bring in computers and put a computer screen in front of judges and say, check this out, this is what we're building. And a lot of those things don't work. So if they are using extra tech to try and show their product, I think they need to be well rehearsed on it so it does work and it can actually show what they're trying to get across. Okay, cue cards versus phones versus winging it. Now, this is a big one for me. I personally like cue cards. I like the idea of the team having a discrete cue card in their hand, not big bits of paper that wave around because they're distracting. I don't like phones because I don't like when they turn off. And I'm not really a fan of people winging it. If I was to wing this presentation with Adoy, I'd be over by now because I would have forgotten everything I wanted to say. So does any of the teachers there want to chuck their part in about what they think about cue cards versus winging it versus phones?
Yeah, I've seen one student group wing it and do well, and that's it. It's near impossible. You look very authentic and genuine, but the risk is way too high if you're going to wing it and read and try and get it and figure out what you're going to say. You're much better if you're prepared. I've had cue cards and I've had phones. Okay, cue cards, I view them as a safety net. It's there. Use them if you need to. They can be in the palm of your hand. It should be a cue. It shouldn't be the whole thing written down. That's the way I see it. And it makes students a lot more comfortable. Phones kind of suck because one, they're probably going to forget to turn it off. Two, they're going to forget where they are. Three, I can get a phone call and that's it. They're done. They won't find out where they are. And I tell students that. And when they use their phones, when they're doing their practice pitch, I call them.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt. I mean, that's great advice. I mean, personally, I would always stick with cue cards and nice, discreet ones. As there is, you can get the odd student like Matt said that can wing it and is charismatic and they look great, but they're very few and far between. I mean, a lot of adults can't wing it that are trying to pitch across as well. Interaction with judges. I really like this. If you can involve a judge in your pitch in a fun way and get the judges laughing and involved, they're going to listen to you. I know a Roncalli team at Nationals last year they got a judge to hold a particular part of their prop while they were demonstrating it. The judge was giggling for the whole time. She really enjoyed it. So during the pitch, the judges aren't simply just a window to look at. They can be a tool to really help with the pitch too, whether they're trying the product, whether they're helping demonstrate it. Not reading from the screen is an absolute big one. You don't impress judges with that. I know Dave's going to come and chat to you in a minute about that. Today, we saw groups reading directly off the screen, and it was really, really distracting. If they are reading from their screen, you know that they've got way too much information in their pitch in terms of what's on their PowerPoint. So that's a big no-no. Being different, lots of personality. Today, Dave would have seen, well, let's say that there was a couple of judges here, they were all day and that they watched 20 pitches and they could watch 25, 30 in a day. And that's a lot to think, with that next group, how they're different, how I'm going to score them any different, when if they do stand out and they do something quite unique, they will be remembered. And that's really important. Big groups can be distracting. Today we had a lot of sixes, and I know that we've got some groups here. Steve, you've got some big groups. I'm just thinking about other schools that I know Villa has big groups. The big groups can be great when everyone's involved, but they can also be distracting. So it's a fine line trying to figure out how that can work. I know, Jackie, I've seen some of your groups in the past where all the girls have been doing things simultaneously. That can be quite cool. I don't know. Does anyone need sort of ideas on big groups versus how you can make them look less distracting or involve more people? What do we think? Can you take your mute off, Jackie, if you're... Still on mute there, Jackie.
I think if you're going to do that, it needs a lot of practice and a lot of confidence.
Okay, cool. A question I got asked before, can you put people down the back that might be part of a group that don't want to pitch? I mean, that's fine. We're going to give the judges information on that, saying not everyone has to pitch. Yes, it's a good learning tool, but not everyone has to pitch if it's going to be too distracting. If you've got 2 or 3 great speakers and they can do wonders for your group in terms of points, utilize that. I mean, it's up to you. And Adoya and I will give instructions to the judges that either way, any way they're doing it with the big groups to make it better for them is what we're asking. So there's no one model that's going to work. Having a product to show, Liz mentioned that. The product's got to work. If you've got a sellable product, that's really getting the judges excited in these pitches. Something that they could buy. A team that's already selling is far above teams that have an idea in their head but no real image, as Liz mentioned. Putting a slideshow together, we're just going to go value of first impressions. While I've got Dave here, he's going to come and chat to you and tell you about what he does here at Paulson Higgs down in Dunedin, and he's got some tips on how to put a good pitch together. So I'm going to pass you over to Dave.
Good afternoon. Well, this is all quite exciting.
They're all on mute.
They're all on mute, but some wave, so that's really positive. So my official title at Paulson Higgs is Professional Development Manager. So one of my tasks is to turn boring accountants into real human beings. And I'm a bit concerned that it's being recorded now, but so it's about bringing out their personality so when they're interacting with clients, they're more engaging, which is a nice segue into what we're going to talk about here, because when I thought about today, the teams that stood out were the ones that were more engaging, that the level of engagement I had with them was increased. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that I saw today that increased that level of engagement. And it's all about just adding an extra level of polish. And the very first one was the teams that came and shook my hand. When they walked in, they came up, they shook my hand, they read my name badge and said, good morning, Dave or David. That made a huge difference from the ones that walked in and immediately went to the back of the room and hid. Right? Sorry, not the back of the room, went straight in front of the screen and got themselves organised. So the first opportunity to get engaged with the judges. It's a 5-minute window. You want to maximize that. We all love and remember stories. So teams that tell a story are far more memorable, and you also engage with them because you go along with them on their story. So presentations that talked about, we're doing this because someone in my family suffered from this. We're doing this because why this is important to us. Much higher level of engagement from a judging perspective because it becomes more personal and emotional. So tell a story and tell it from your perspective, from the student's perspective. Really good. Keep slides really, really simple. The most compelling presentation today was the PowerPoint was completely white slides with one word in the middle. So all the slide had on was mission, and then the student talked about what their mission was. It had one word, it had product, and they talked about the product. If I'm reading a slide, I'm not engaged with the student. So the moment the judge is reading the slide, I know we're all meant to be able to multitask, but we don't. Our brain switches over, we're processing that information in front of us. We're not engaging with the speaker. And that's a segue into, so keep the slides really, really simple. Certainly don't read from the slides because I can read faster than you can speak. So it just annoys me. Also, my mind will wander off because I've read it, you're still going, you've lost me. So that level of engagement, you can maximize that by keeping the slides really simple because then I have to listen because that's where the information is coming from. If you're going to use stats, they love numbers around this place. That's what they live and breathe for. I like infographics. I like pictures and visual things. Even if it's 42, but you've got a graph pointing up to the sky or whatever beside it, that's far more engaging than a whole screenshot. Some had just taken screenshots of Excel and that was their cash flow. And even with my reading glasses on or off, I mean, I've got no show of reading it from one end of the room to the other. So I just take their word for it. But there's way too much information for someone to try and process in the limited time. So keep them really simple. Control the narrative. So what a lot of teams will do is they'll walk in and they will put the product down in front of the judges. Then they go and they start speaking. And immediately what happens is I'm distracted, especially if it's food. I'm distracted by what's in front of me. So I'll be picking it up, I'll be reading their book, I'll be looking at their gadget, I'll be eating the food. And once again, I'm not engaged with them. So what they should do is work out when in their pitch they want the judges to look at this product, when they want the judges to taste this, when they want the judges to have that tactile experience. And the tactile experience of picking up and holding something is really important. That's quite persuasive. But it's far better if they control when I do that. Because if they just plonk it in front of me and walk away, then it doesn't have the same impact. And also, I'll be distracted when they want me to be engaged.
One last tip.
Don't read from the slide. Well, and the last one was waving around great sways of A4 and reading off them did my head in. That's perfect. That's perfect. And phones just annoy me because they're way too big in the palm of your hand as well. That do you?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Really
Cool.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Beauty. So, yep, Dave has been watching a few pictures over the last couple of days, and it's great to get that information fresh from him. So, if you are putting a slideshow together, some tips we're going to give you from what I think will help and information Dave's got. And I've got another teacher in here who's going to talk about how he does it in terms of with his students. Can't emphasize enough how important PowerPoint or PDF is. I know down in Invercargill last week, a group turned up with their program on a Google Slides, and a lot of groups do that, and it's really hard for us. Gets us quite flustered, Adoya, when we've got to run around trying to plug computers in. And sometimes we've seen programs that we don't have on our computers, like particular publishing type applications. We have to download them for them to work. So really stick to PowerPoint. To me, PowerPoint's number one. PDF is your second choice. I like the idea of a theme that matches your business logo and vision. If you've got a particular color, I like that theme going through your pitch, and it makes the pitch look visibly quite cool. Dave just mentioned he likes white. He's a simple man with simple pleasures. I quite like a color theme that goes through, and it's continuous and consistent. Font size big. We had a lot of judges here today that had glasses on, and I could see them squinting. So that means they can't read what's up on the board. Big font size is big. Like, I know the one I've got at the top of this is big. I would keep that as a minimum size in terms of what you're checking up for fonts. Images are better than words. Today, the judges that saw the pictures without words were quite excited, and that got them marking a bit higher than all the words up on the screen. So if you can use pictures, go for it. No more than a couple of sentences per page. I mean, that goes with what we've been saying. And I'm a really big fan on real images. If the groups have got pictures of them doing the mahi, doing the work, involved with the process, meeting people in town, chuck those things up. Avoid the Google images. I know Liz and I, a couple of years back, we were at a particular pitch day. I won't mention where that was. We were betting what the first slide was going to be, whether it was going to be a dolphin drowning in plastic or a picture of a rubbish dump. And honestly, 5 of the pictures had the exact same first slide. It just got so repetitive. We love seeing real images from the team doing real work. Know the marking schedule. We're going to quickly run through that later on. The judges have to mark to a schedule. So if the students are tick boxing, getting there, making sure they do those things, then that's good. And the mid-year pitch is a tick box approach. I know end of year, it's holistic. The judges pick the team they think has the most potential of getting a national title, I guess, or being the best representation. But at mid-year, they are giving you a mark based on a marking schedule. So make sure you follow that schedule. Tables need to be easy to follow. Today we watched the cut and paste Excel docs. Don't do that. It was horrible. I couldn't read any of it. They lost me. This is an example of too much writing. So I could read this out. I'm going blah, blah, blah. This is what some groups will be doing today. And by the end, the last bullet point I've got, but wait, there's another paragraph for them to read. Judges, erect. Meeting the quadruple bottom line could be done as simply as 3 images. So it's just the value of images versus the writing, and then the students could talk about it. So before we move on to the marking schedule, Liz is going to find me Mr. Prattley.
Yeah.
We've lost him. We'll bring him in a minute. We're just going to go through the marking schedule.
Come on now.
Yep. These are our marks. I think I've lost one. I've got them all there, I hope. It's 100 points, but I'm going to go through this anyway in a minute. But before we do that, I've got a good friend of ours from Otago Boys, and he's going to talk about a few tips, a few ways of prepping to make sure that his boys are ready to pitch and to do it well. So, Mr. Prattley.
All good. Thanks, Regan. Hi, team.
They're all on silent.
They're all on silent, so that's always a captive audience, isn't it? Right.
Who are you first?
Oh, who am I? My name's Gwyn Prattley. I teach business studies and economics at Otago Boys High School, and I've been involved in the Young Enterprise Scheme for the last 5 years. really enjoyed it. It's good for our boys because it does actually, I've sort of, Regan sort of said, talk about how you get your guys sort of pitch ready. I call it sort of pitch ready in the sense that the thing about our young men at Otago Boys is they don't like being put on the spot and they don't like presenting. They don't like standing up too much in front of audiences. And this is a great vehicle to sort of develop those soft skills. So, you know, one of my big things for our guys is we've just got to practice that. We're actually got to put ourselves on the spot and be ready. So first thing is a lot of our boys, we talk about, I remember talking for about the first 2 years saying things along the lines of, it's like Dragon's Den. It's like a Dragon's Den pitch. And I used to say that. And it wasn't until about 2 years later that one boy came up to me and said, you know, no one's ever seen the program Dragon's Den. We don't know what you mean by that. So a lot of our guys don't know what a pitch is. So sometimes you need to simulate it, or you can talk about, you can watch old Dragon's Dens, or you can watch what they sort of see more regularly, like Shark Tank, to sort of show them what you are sort of doing, this sort of idea. And it's good on the Young Enterprise site now. On the I Qualify, you can actually watch some old pitches. So I think the first thing to get sort of pitch ready, one of those probably big building blocks is to actually show them what they're going to do, and then explain that there's going to be a panel of judges in front of them, etc. And then I just try and break it down, right down to the little things along the lines of who is speaking, where they are standing, what their stance is, what their posture is, how they're holding their hands, you know, how they wear their uniform correctly, if they're wearing uniforms or if they're not. So that's sort of some of the small things. And then one of the things I do is there's nothing wrong with having an old, or you can look on I Qualify when there's resources there from Young Enterprise, but I've got some old templates that I can show the boys what's happened in the past. I like to tie it to the marking criteria. So I Qualify now has Young Enterprise have what the marking schedule is. So when you see things like business idea, marketing and sales, production, finance, innovation, those need to be talked about, and I try and stress my boys to say, look, you're going to need a slide on each one of these. So I try and tie it to the marking criteria, and then just some of those small 1%ers, like it would be good to have, you know, the Young Enterprise logo on there, or it'd be good to have the school logo on there, or it'd be good to have your business logo on there. Try and give them some sort of ideas what to put on there, and obviously it's all about, you know, just trying to play to your strengths. So we try and get our boys to all contribute to the pitch, but that doesn't mean they're all going to speak. And I think sometimes you need your best speakers. So I try and, you know, sometimes the best speakers aren't the hardest workers, but they sometimes are the guys that can actually pitch. And so we try and get those sorts of guys to do it. One of the probably one of the main things is when they are pitching and practicing, I think one of the things that goes down well with judges, and it may not be in the marking criteria exactly, I can't really remember off the top of my head, but I think what resonates with the judges is if you can get a team to get past the business idea and have a prototype, if you front with a prototype, I think that gives you a lot of credibility. So if you're, no matter if it's a first run prototype right up to the finished good, but if you can actually walk in with a prototype in front of you to put in front of the judges, sometimes you can give it to them up front and say, hey, here's our product, we'll talk about that now. Or you can, you know, keep the judges in suspense where all of a sudden you're holding on to it up the front and they're looking at it thinking, gee, we just want to try that or use that or get hold of that. That's probably quite a good technique to use as well. But I think probably my main tip is you've got to practice, you know, and if you have some students like I have, they don't want to practice, they want to avoid it, they don't want to get there. But I think you've got to mark out in advance, you know, a week in advance, you've got to be in class trying to have a practice saying, right, this is practice day in class, or this is practice day at lunchtime, or this is practice day whenever. And you get all your guys or girls to have a go at practicing. That's probably, you know, practice makes perfect. And in this case, practice makes pitch perfect. So you can just give some really good feedback and build their confidence. And probably when they get up there, you know, you will all know probably better than I how to speak to audiences and how to do speeches and things. But the judges don't want to see you reading anything. They almost don't want any cue cards. They want to actually believe that the students are engaged with their product, and they really want to know the problem. So if you get up there, you get your students up there to sort of say, have you ever experienced this problem, or put yourself in this scenario? Often the judges engage with that, and then you sort of say, well, this happened to us. Or if your group can actually connect, if they can tell a story that connects them to the problem, to your product, you're onto a real winner. So sometimes that's something to think about, connecting the problem to the story, to your students. So they're probably the things really that I could sort of say. But my number one tip would be go to the marketing schedule and practice as much as you can. Hope that's of some help.
Great.
Cheers, Regan.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you.
Glenn's a modest man too. He didn't talk about his success. He was Yes Teacher of the Year in 2018. He calls himself Yes Teacher of the Century. So do his students. He's had some great success, and he's got good numbers down here in Otago Boys. So I've got the marking schedule here. I missed, the pitch, which is worth 15 points on the schedule. So look, you can tell straight away there's areas that you can target to get really good marks. If your product isn't overly innovative in your mind for that group, you can still nail those other sections to still score really highly. I mean, I'm looking at the business idea today. Judges were marking it quite holistically, this category. They were wanting teams that had a great idea and knew who their competitors were and had a clear goal of where they wanted to go. And they were just scoring, going, I think that team's worth 17 out of 20. And they were working backwards from there. And they were judging teams. They've got those electronic score sheets in front of them. They've seen a 12, they've seen a 13 out of 20. They know, I want that team to be a 17. They work that way. Same with marketing and sales. They're like, man, I love that marketing strategy, that team. How can I get their marks? Because it's quite hard to mark in 5 minutes, and they'll go through this looking at, did they validate? Have they got a brand identity? One judge yesterday morning was particularly strong on brand identity, wanting to see that the team had a business logo on their product, that they were creating brand image for the future. And promotion and sales, it says you've got to have 2 or more promotional methods, so that's what you've got to do to get those 5 points and follow that marketing schedule. Production people were quite funny today. They really like to see photos of the team creating the product themselves. The teams that were getting 13s and 14s out of 15 marks had photos of them actually doing the work, and they had names of companies that were helping them. They were really addressing how the product is going to be created from point A all the way to the consumer's hands. The one judge in particular kept asking those questions around production. Finance, we generally have the money type people doing the finances, so they're quite particular. I know this is a bit of a tick box, but you've got to get this stuff in there. They need to know. It says there fixed costs. What are your fixed costs? But don't list them like oodles and oodles of reading and writing. Sources of capital, the groups that have got their capital sorted rather than, we think we're going to chuck $20 in each. The teams that have fundraised and know that they need $500 for this first run, those are the teams that have scored higher in finance with decent profit forecasting that's realistic. We are going to make $800 million this year. I mean, that's just there's some really unrealistic forecasting. And there's some groups that are just underselling themselves, saying we're going to move 15 units at $10 profit. I mean, that's just not good enough. So profit forecasting is going to be good. The judges will be marking these sections individually, but they will sit around and have a bit of a chat on what they thought. So innovation, if they love your idea, they're going to be looking at 8s and 9s. If they think the idea's it's a saturated market that groups do a lot of, and they've seen in the past, they're going to score low. The pitch, what we've talked about how to make a great pitch. I've seen today, we've probably seen a couple of 15s, and I'm going to show an example of a 15 at the end of this pitch from the group that got second at Nationals last year from Dunedin. They pitched again today because they're now year 13s. I've got how to create a pitch. This is how I would start off. This is just my advice. I know Glenn had some slightly different advice about certain things to Dave and probably to me. This is just what I think works. I mean, you can take this advice on and create your pitch this way, or you can do it a different way that might suit you. I'm a really big fan on the clear intro. I call it, it's like the elevator pitch. When they come in, they're going to shake hands and meet the people. They don't need to use their names at the beginning of their PowerPoint presentation saying, I'm John and I'm the CEO and I'm Peter, I'm the CFO. I mean, that stuff's not necessary because the judges don't know what that means. So clear intro, hello, judges, we are company name, we are creating the product and we are creating it for the market. It might be we're creating powdered beer for the tramping market. And that's really clear. And then the judges can actually start focusing on the pitch and not sitting around watching pictures of dolphins drowning, going, what are these guys doing? And that's probably the comment about really getting the pitch up and running. Creating the story, the passion. So many judges have mentioned over the last 3 to 4 days about passion, and their grades are better for a team they think is connected. We had a girl yesterday, had pictures of her and her family dagging wool, and she's now using the dags for a mulch system in gardens. And they were raving about the connection between her business and her passion and the reason for her starting up. So they could see, oh, we know how you found that product and that problem. So that's great. Brand image. You've got to create brand image early. Have those slides up early of the company logos, explaining the problem. And we've talked about that for years. They've got to be solving the problem, but now they can also have an opportunity in the market to make some money or to create social change. It doesn't have to be an obvious problem. It can be an opportunity to do something great. What is the product? Has to be really clear. Judges in today, they want to know what the actual product is. I know one group took about 3 minutes to explain their product in enough detail that they could understand it. And I know Dave talked about the right time in that product in. I've never actually thought about that. I've always kind of chucked it at the beginning, but now he's mentioned that maybe there is a great time halfway through to your pitch to involve that part. I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that. That would be great. But you need to convince judges that they need it and that the market needs it and that your target market needs it. What makes a product different? You've got to know your UVP, innovation, sustainability. You don't need to list all that stuff up on slides and slides of what innovation goals you're meeting. It's not really that important. You just got to know who your competition is and what makes your product really unique. Target marketing's important too. You've got to know some basic things about your target market in terms of the demographics and what ages they are. You don't have to go into massive detail, but know who your target market is and how you can find them. How the product is made, the process. I know the judges love the pictures of the teams that show them making it. You know, if you can use photos, real photos, not generic ones. If you can use names, and if you've got evidence that the product actually works. There was one judge today that was a stickler for that. He said, what evidence do you have that that pill or that cream or that lip balm is going to actually work? Do you have evidence? If you can chuck that evidence in, you're going to tick all the right boxes in terms of impressing those judges. Financial information. I know this bit comes across a bit tick boxy, but you've got to get those things in. You know, cash flow matters, variable costs, profit forecasts, gross net. If you can do that in a fun way, that's not a big screen full of crap and numbers, then that's great. If the teams can do that, some can do that really well. Others, you know, they cut and paste the Excel spreadsheet. Marketing plan, you need 2 methods. That's what the marketing schedule says. Avoid the simple, we're going Facebook, Instagram, we're using social media. And it has to relate to the target market. If your target market is old ladies that go to a market on Sundays, then yes, then your marketing plan needs to target them. If your group is secondary school kids, then the marketing method might be a direct marketing style where they actually approach schools. It has to be unique for who your target market is and what the business wants to achieve. Sales plans, I mean, that ties in with that. How do you actually target your target market with a sales plan? I know Gwyn Prattley, one of his card groups last year, he's the card master. If you ever want to see a teacher that creates more card games than anyone else, then Prattley's the man. His group last year created a card game, and they marketed it directly to schools and they sold it directly to schools. That was their marketing and sales strategy, and they moved about 20K worth of stock in a couple of weeks from a particular marketing sales plan, and that was fantastic. It really suited them. I like the idea of a timeline with numbers and vision in terms of when you're going to spend money, when things are going to be selling, and when evidence you've done the work. So many judges today talked about, we can tell this group is talking crap versus this group has done the work and we know they've done this and they've got evidence. So evidence-based timeline is quite cool. Knowing where you're going to be at a certain time frame is great as well. Answering the questions at the end. It takes good, confident groups to do this. I like the idea of one person answering a question rather than kind of 3 or 4 chucking their 5 cents in. So if you, like, say, have a team 6 and 3 pitch, the other 3 can come up the front and answer questions if you want to do it that way. Or people might be focused on answering the questions. They might not be actually pitching. They might be the sole question answerer. I know Benassi had Leo from a couple of years ago from one of his winning groups, and his instructions and his training were to answer all the questions. Benassi, is that right?
Yeah, so I went 2 and 1 for most of my groups. I try and find, Gwen said, find the best speakers. I try and find the best pair of speakers, and they got to gel with each other really, really well. And then I try and find the best person to answer the questions. So sometimes the best person that answers the questions isn't the best speaker, and that needs to be a different role because they can get straight to the point and they've got the detail that's going to convince the judges that the presentation is well researched and they can get straight to the point. They're not always the warmest person, but they can answer the question. And it works really well when you invite another person to come up and actually just go for it and answer those questions. So that's typically how we did it. We had 2 pitching, and then 1 person would come up, and that person's focus was answering the question and quickly.
And that one person could also drive the presentation as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other person. That person there is watching the pitches and is also doing a bit of coaching. So that person could be in a better coaching role than a better pitching role because they could see what's going on.
Cool. All right, that is literally all I wanted to chat to today about. I know we're conscious for time here. It's a bit longer than what I was hoping for, but if you wanted to hang around, I could show you a pitch today just for a couple of minutes in terms of how simple it was. So I might just do this quickly before we disappear. And it was, I'm going to share this one here. Now everyone can see that one okay? That's fine, that's working. So this is Albaro. They're a second-year team. This is Robert. He put a picture of himself. Like, he's quite vulnerable in terms of his story, and I don't mind vulnerability. It really did attract the judges' attention, and he showed a personal picture of him suffering from acne at the beginning of last year, which created the drive in him to find a product that would actually work for him. And he was standing up there, nice clear skin now based on using this product. And part of his pitch was about how he completely believed in this product and it's been life-changing for him. Really, really good story. Nice and powerful. There's not a lot of writing on here. He's got some numbers. They've used numbers really well. And it was quite easy to see. It's a nice format. There's the product. More numbers. They talked about, because they've got sales, and I don't really like to say this, but they've moved $18,000 worth of product already this year. So they've got their second-year team, which will be judged a bit harder because for national level or whatever level they get to regional finals, judges need to know that they've actually done something new this year, and they won't judge them based on what products they've probably brought through. So it is sometimes a bit iffy when you think first year versus the second year versus the third year team. Judges do know that and they judge accordingly. But they've got 97% satisfaction rate from their customers this year already because they're in a great position to already be selling. Nice and simple. This is their new product. They're going with the kombucha, and they had that product to show it around, but they're still in the beginning stages. Looking at some of their labeling, their vision. They just used simple images, and the pitch was all on them. Some basic, no more than 3 bits of information on the page. They've got real images from friends of theirs. Just nice evidence of them doing that. So I probably won't, I know we're about to hit financials and they've asked me not to share their financials with anyone at this stage. So that's where we're at for today. Hopefully a few more teachers will get the chance to read this. And I know it's a bad time of day for most people to find the time anyway. And I really appreciate you joining in. And hopefully you've picked up some good tips from today that you can use for your pitches. But before we let you run away, do we have any last minute questions? Jackie, you're good? Caroline, you happy? Good.
Yep.
All right. We will let you release you to back to the wild. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing your pictures over the next month.
Yep. And I'll send the recording tomorrow after it's passed on. Yep. Cool.
Thanks,
Thank
Regan and
you.
Latoya.
Thank you, guys.
It was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
We'll
Yeah.
see you all very, very, very soon. I'm very excited.
Good. Us too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Everyone,
Have a good
bye-bye.
night.
Bye.